Hey guys, my name is Colin Ledbetter. Welcome back to another episode of the Built Different podcast. In studio with me today, I have Brian Hayes. So I'm going to let him introduce himself.
I'm Brian Hayes from St. Louis City. Been doing police work for St. Louis City for about 9 years now.
9 years. So you've mostly been in the 5th district, is that correct? You kind of jumped around a little bit?
I did the tour. So I started off in the 2nd for a year.
Okay.
Got moved to the 3rd for 3 weeks until the captain in the 6th took his command. And then he moved me up there on their D platoon, and that didn't work out for me. So I've been in the 5th for about 6 years.
Okay, and I think that's kind of from when I know you. So, so you're still in the 5th district then?
Yes.
Okay. Since you've kind of jumped around a little bit, what's your favorite?
I really do love the 5th. It's a lot. North Patrol 6 was great too. For
the 5th, but the 5th you kind of get a dynamic. You get a little bit of everything with the 5th. And you
go from multi-million-dollar homes to homes that like I grew up in. So
Yep. Let's talk about a little bit of your upbringing, if you don't mind. You grew up in what neighborhood? You grew up in?
It's split. It's a High Park, College Hills neighborhood.
Okay.
It's over by not too far from Grand and 70.
In those neighborhoods, have they changed a lot since you grew up there? Or it's kind of the same.
A lot more vacant buildings than when I was growing up, but yeah, it's about the same.
Yeah. How does that affect your policing now, knowing where you grew up and stuff like that? You think it makes you a better officer?
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes me the officer that I am today. It helps me relate to the community.
Absolutely.
I mean, I grew up in that community, so I know the struggles. I've been poor majority of my life growing up with the public high school. So
yeah, I feel like that would definitely change the dynamic for someone, and it definitely and knowing that I worked with you and stuff like that, I could always see that kind of on calls. You would relate to people so much easier just because of that dynamic, and it helps out a lot. Are you still a training officer? Are you training?
I'm still field training officer. I'm still hostage negotiator, and I'm still peer support.
Let's break some of those down. I guess let's start with the FTO part. I never got to be an FTO, but I know how much my FTO imprinted in me and how I became an officer and stuff. So let's talk about how important that is for the job, building up young officers into who they are.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very stressful sometimes because you're responsible for like 7 years of their training. From 7 years from the time you stop training them, they can go back and say, hey, you didn't do this right with them. You trained them the wrong way on this. But just to get them to start off doing the paperwork and the calls and being comfortable answering the radio to the point where you're letting them out on their own, letting the kiddies go. But it's stressful. You're on a scene, and you got to worry about not only yourself, you got to worry about them because they don't know anything right off the bat. And then it gets really stressful when the department is short on FTOs and you have two to three probes in your car at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that would be a very hard situation, especially being in the 5th district. You go on multiple different chaotic scenes, shooting scenes, stuff like that, and you hop out of the car with 2 brand new guys and you're trying to not have a leash on them, but at least have something, have eyes on them at least. So I definitely...
Yeah, it makes them... Either they're going to sink or swim, basically. Yeah. I mean, you could tell the ones that are hesitant on the calls. Yeah. That are not going to probably be that good at chaotic scenes. Yeah. But then you see the ones who are built for it.
Yeah. Let's step into the hostage negotiation part. I feel like that's pretty integral in stuff, especially for a major metropolitan police department, that we have people like that can do that and can talk to people in those types of situations. If you want to share a little bit more about that.
So for our department, you have to have 3 years on to apply for it. And I was slid in at 6 months on the department by Lieutenant Panzer. But it's called crisis hostage negotiation now. So a majority of it is not hostage negotiation. Right. It's barricaded suspect. Yep. So if somebody runs up in a house or somebody does something, they don't want to come out, search warrant, they take a shot at the officers or they refuse to come out. And then that's when we call what's called a 7250. Alert goes out no matter what time or day it is. And you can be at a birthday party, you can be at a family event or at home sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning and you get that page out and you're going.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a light to share about, a lot of officers in the city. And even nowadays, we have so many things happening in the city that, a lot of officers could be called into work at a certain point in time, whether it be a major police-involved shooting or just someone got hit on the highway, anything like that. I know officers get called in all the time, and I think that's an important light to bring to modern-day policing. So I guess what kind of led you into policing? Obviously you probably had a little bit of wanting to change from where you were. And
so when I grew up, it was 9 districts that the department had. And I grew up directly across the street diagonal from the old 5th District Police Station on 19th and Penrose. Like you walk out their back door, the house I grew up in was on the right-hand side. So I always was intrigued about being a police officer. I always wanted to do that. It was not looked upon, especially most people in my family were in and out of prisons.
Yeah.
Some people were in a gang, some people were selling drugs in my family, and I never wanted to go down that path. But it took me a long time to get to be a police officer because I went into the military right out of high school. Did that for a few years, got in the National Guard, but I didn't have a college degree. So at the time, the police department was required to have a college degree. So it took me a lot longer. I joined the police department here at 39 years of age. So I graduated when I turned 40.
I mean, I feel like that gives you a whole different, I've seen some of the older guys, it gives you just a whole different perspective of how you treat the community, how you get some of the young guys, not to say that they're, rude or anything, but they just come in with a whole different light and you come in and you're like, hey, this calming presence.
I've been done wrong by this police department before, in the 90s and that. And I tell the officers, the new ones that are trained, I say, this uniform has done wrong to people. So this uniform, whoever's wearing it is going to escalate a situation when getting there. It's your job to de-escalate. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point, and I can relate to that on so many scenes of someone that has been done wrong for whatever reason, and definitely the police uniform anywhere nowadays is immediate trigger factor. Blue shows up on the scene and it's there. I kind of like asking this question. I get different responses all shows, but I like to ask, would you recommend this job to a friend or a family member?
So I would always encourage people to do what they feel like they want to do. St. Louis City, I love it. I mean, I do. I really do. I love it. It's stressful. It's chaotic. It's frustrating, especially when money-wise, computer-wise, your equipment doesn't work half the time. Your cars are a piece of crap sometimes.
Yep.
But it's getting better. We got a take-home program with cars for people now, and the Tahoes are getting better. But if I would, I would encourage people to follow their dreams. I'm never going to discourage them.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So if you think you're going to come in here and get rich, you're not. If you're going to come in here and you're going to see trauma, you are.
Yeah.
You will see way more trauma in the city than you would some little county way out in the hick somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that brings back a memory when I was first trying to become a police officer. It's kind of something I want to do since I was young. And I started applying to all these different places. The first place that I applied was St. Louis City. My parents kept asking me, why? And I said, I want to be the real police. And that was not anywhere farther from the truth.
And that was before you found out that North Patrol was home of the real police.
Home of the real police. Yep. Yeah. When I pulled up, I still remember pulling up for my ride along, and I rode in the 6th District with Andre Rogers.
Oh, Andre.
Yeah. And I think he was an FTO, but he was on the desk for a little bit then, and they had pulled him off the desk just to take us probes out, and he was cool with it, but he was also like, listen, you guys better not screw up my night. But yeah, that was really cool. But I remember pulling up and seeing Home of the Real Police, and I was like, this is where I want to work. So I got another question for you. How everyone's answer is different, but how do you decompress after a long day at work?
So since I moved out to Jefferson County, it's like a 30-minute drive, which is really a blessing because I used to live like maybe less than 10 minutes from the North Patrol.
Yep.
So that drive is in silence.
Yep.
It's in silence. I don't play the radio. I don't play music. I don't do anything. I just don't mess with my phone. I don't even call my wife for them. I just silence all the way home.
The best thing that happened to me is when I got back from overseas with the Guard. I moved back to Vandalia. It's an hour-long drive, and it was, I feel like my mood, everything changed after that, because I wasn't going home and going straight to bed or going to sit on the recliner, thinking about things. It was whatever I had to get off my chest was done on that drive, and I was good to go. Yeah, I can't recommend driving to work longer than 15, 20 minutes, it helps.
Yeah.
So I guess let's kind of dive into what are some of your favorite moments on the job?
Well, I like doing community engagement stuff.
Yeah.
I love dealing with kids. I really do well with kids that are in crisis, like mental health kids. So I like dealing with them. I like doing programs. I like doing fundraisers. Dealing with the public. My ultimate goal as a police officer is to leave somebody in a better spot than I find them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I like doing.
And I'm going to kind of add on to that there. I definitely know from working with you, that was always kind of your number one goal. You could always kind of see that. You always knew we would, before you had your incident, my incident and all that, you worked with me a couple times on overtime and stuff, and we'd get out of the car, and it never failed. At least one time a shift, we'd get out of the car and say, "What's up, Hayes?" People just knew you, and that's
the
awesome.
area I grew up in. So and it has to deal with. I used to work for Department of Corrections before police too, with the Honor Center. So a lot of the people that we're dealing with police, I've already dealt with before in the jail system. So
I think that that dynamic though, like I never saw that any other way in the department. There wasn't a guy that I knew that could hop out of a car almost every shift and meet someone that he knew.
Probes say it all the time. How do you know everybody?
Yeah.
I swear, it's just also. I get out of the car in my district, and I joke with people. I make people laugh. I had a probe recently tell me with her FTO that it's a different day and night with me and with him, because he's all business and I'm all trying to make people laugh and joke around, because just because we're the police don't mean we can't have a good time.
Absolutely.
I go into Crown Vision and I mess with them ladies all the time too. So
I think that that is something a little bit that the city's missing, especially up north. And I know, the call volume and everything sometimes prevents that kind of stuff. But I remember in the 6th District just thinking, like, why don't we hop out of the car and get out more and do a foot beat every once in a while? I know that, that might sound crazy to some officers walking down, North Broadway. But sometimes that's got to be done, because they might see you walking down the street one day and they're like, well, if he's cool enough to walk through my hood, I'm going to tell him what he needs to know.
And I tell pros all the time, treat them like you want to be treated. I don't disrespect nobody on purpose. I don't treat them badly. I don't violate their civil rights. I have a saying that I tell every person I ride with for the very first time. And I go through the whole saying about, I don't lie on nobody, I don't steal from nobody. I joke around and play a lot, but if I say gun, there's a gun. I can't say you saw something that I didn't see. You have to stand on that. And I say, if you think I did something wrong, please address it or go report it. And I've had many times where I got into it with people on the streets, and I give them my business card, and like, we're going to report you. I'm like, we're here. I want you to You think I did something wrong? Do it. I got body camera.
Give them all the tools.
So it's whatever. But I remember one time in during COVID, they used to have them little parades of birthdays where in cars where people couldn't go to the birthday parties, but they'll go in cars and drop off gifts. And I used to get in line, turn my lights and sirens on, and I'll give the kid like $20 or something like that. And I had a probate at the time. And he tried to do that after he got off FTO. And he called me and he said, I'm mad at you. And I'm like, why? He said, I did one of them birthday things. I said, how'd it go? He said, the girl was so excited when I gave her $10. And I was like, she was jumping up and down. I said, well, so why are you mad? He said, it was 100. I thought it was a 10. So he gave her a $100 bill instead of a $10.
You mentioned right there about body cameras. So you've kind of experienced before and the after.
Yeah.
And you've even experienced policing without.
Yes.
I want to bring that up because I started without body cameras, and it was for a brief moment, but when I came back from overseas, we had body cameras. I was ecstatic. Not only for report writing, I feel like so whenever I would do big reports, I would get back to the station and I would just watch my body camera footage again. And I feel like I was more attentive to victims, stuff like that, being able to write. But not only that, I could play back and think something that didn't happened, or vice versa, you know. So let's kind of talk about that. I love body cameras. I love that St. Louis has made that step into it. How are they?
When the body cameras first came out, they had a list of all newer officers receiving them first. You remember that? Mm-hmm. So all the new officers got them first. Mm-hmm. I wasn't on the list at first. Mm-hmm. I went down and asked for one.
Yeah.
And they was happy to give it to me. Mm-hmm. I requested one from day one because I want that, because that's going to justify what I do. Absolutely. So I'm not worried about the bad things I do. And bad officers, their biggest fear, they don't do bad stuff in front of good officers, because good officers are going to say something. Mm-hmm. I'm an able instructor. So I teach that about being able to speak up and speak out about anybody from the chief on down. So the body camera was a blessing. I mean, it gets tired. they go, the battery drains so much. So, but I know. But I love being able to say, hey, it's being recorded. Say what you want to say. They can go back and look at it. I felt like as soon as I got mine, started wearing it and stuff, it almost de-escalated the situation. It gave you that extra tool of de-escalation, because you'd show up on a scene, people start yelling, and they're like, oh, you're probably just going to beat us up. And I'd be like, listen, I got a body camera. You know, we don't do that stuff. And it was like instant. At first it took away a lot of police officers' discretionary. Yeah. Remember, a lot of officers like, I got to take you in, it's being recorded. Yep. And so the community was like, but you're St. Louis City, you're taking me in for a traffic ticket? Yeah. It's being recorded. They're like, I hate them things. Yep. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. I remember there was a big controversy about that. I think that was, I mean, it's the greatest thing to happen for, police departments around the world, no matter what people think. If they turn them on. I know. I was the biggest advocate, I felt like, for, especially in my platoon, and none of us were recording, but it's terrible. Yeah. So we kind of talked about the best times. Let's talk about the worst times. So the worst time personally that affected me physically or mentally? Because the worst time ever is, especially when a child dies, and especially when you're trying to do life-saving measures on them, they still pass away, especially at young ages, toddlers and below, to infants, newborns. Anytime somebody loses a life in a traumatic situation, it is traumatic for the officers and the first responders. Absolutely. So, but the worst time on the job for me personally that I went to go through is in 2022, and you can relate to that too. So, when I got struck on the highway with me and my probe at the time, Devion Mitchell and 4 other civilians. So. Yeah, and I'll kind of share the story. So Brian and his probe were hit on the highway at a traffic accident. It was a 1-car accident. It was a lift vehicle carrying 5 students from SLU University. And that happened 2 nights before Nate and I were shot. It
it was a very, very hard time for the department as a whole. Having those two traumatic incidents, and then Ben Polson was within
Right before that.
right before, within 2 weeks probably.
Yeah, it was right before that.
Who was a firefighter with St. Louis City as well.
In my district.
Yeah.
I was on duty that day.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, the city first responders were really
Took a hit.
struggling for a while, and I feel like the fire department, everyone came out stronger for it. Obviously, loss of life is terrible, but I mean, us four, we're kind of all connected. Any of us see each other now, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I rode with you a lot, but like, I feel like we're 10 times closer than even when we were riding together and stuff. So,
and the funny thing is, I was scheduled to do overtime with you guys.
Yep.
On the night you guys got shot, but I was in the hospital. So.
Yep. It's it was a tough couple weeks.
2022 was very stressful. I mean, like I said, told you that before we started, that I was in the hospital and I wanted to leave to come to where you got. Once I found out, I probably would have done with any officer, but once I found out about you and Nathan, I wanted to leave. And our major at the time said if I left, she's going to put me back in a cruiser and send me back.
Yeah.
But
it was definitely a weird year altogether. I mean, we were still, as a country, we were still reeling from, COVID, stuff like that. I remember being in the hospital and I could only have, I think, 2 visitors. I'm sure you were the same way. And it was just strange times altogether.
2022 is just stressful. The high school shooting was involved in that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, taking someone's life or being part of taking someone's life is never something I ever want to do. But the most traumatic event that happened that day was when me and Brian Foster cleared a locker room and had a teacher and 2 girls in there. And the 2 young ladies was huddled together in the corner. And the fear of even seeing us was a reaction that we weren't police officers. It was just the fear in their eyes and how they were so scared of us. It's just, that stuck with me more than anything.
I think seeing people at their worst, whether it be traumatic incidents and stuff like that, it's just terrible. Seeing a family grieving over one of their family members that's just been shot, anything like that. I think that still kind of lives with me to this day, showing up on a scene and just hearing screams. The
screams are the worst.
It is. And
the fear of the kids when you're there, I mean, they don't understand. It's just, not everybody grieves the same way. I seen families just throw themselves all over the place. I seen families who was just calm.
Yeah.
So everybody does it differently.
Yeah, it's grief is a hard thing, and it definitely, I don't think everyone knows this, but police officers, no matter what, we take it home with us. 110%. I still think about, I've been gone for 3 years now. I still think about stuff that happened when I was a pro back in 2018. It's just, it is what it is. Whether they admit it or not, I know every one of them, you don't hear that kind of stuff and not.
That's why I'm big on peer support.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to have counseling sessions. I'm not afraid to call an officer and talk to him. I know I bother him because I go out to every police officer involved shooting or every major accident or injuries. I go out and I try to help.
Yeah.
And I want to be there. If they need something, I want to be there. I'm more of a giver than a receiver. It was really hard, and my wife can contest this. It was very hard for me to receive stuff from people when I was out injured.
Yeah.
Like, people was bringing food and that. I felt bad.
Yeah.
People want to donate, because I went, the day Ben Polson died, I went by the firehouse to see if I can buy them some dinner. Well, their foundation already bought them dinner and that. And I didn't know that touched them the way it did, because a couple weeks later, I got injured. The paramedics and firefighters collected over $1,000 worth of money, and they went and got gift cards from off the hill, and they brought it to my wife and that, and they that way we can just don't have to worry about food for a while.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a testament of how first responders we all collectively come together, fight for each other.
Well, I've been doing guns and hoses for 21 years, 22, longer than that, 22 years or more.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned something about peer support. I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more. If younger officers need to know that it's okay to talk to people, whether it's another officer, whether it's a therapist or something. You know, I've been seeing a therapist since my shooting, and I find 9 times out of 10, we don't talk a thing about my shooting. We'll talk about things that happened 2 years prior to my shooting. We don't talk a thing, you know, we'll talk about my day at work, stuff like that. I think they need to know that it's okay.
But you know what? The younger officers are the one that are more into their mental health.
That's true.
Than it is the older officers.
That's very, any officer across the board.
The younger ones are like, we'll do that. We'll go to that debriefing or a critical debriefing.
That's a very good point.
But that's weird to older officers about why are they so in tune into their mental health? But it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. So once we get after a critical incident, we'll have a critical debriefing within a few days afterwards.
It's amazing.
And we're sitting around a circle. We got this outside agency that comes in, that lady Sally, she is great. And they talk. And you see the officers go in there with the attitude, the older ones, you know, I don't need this, I don't need it. And then they come out, whatever says in there stays in there. Mm-hmm. If you're not part of it, we don't need to bring it out. Mm-hmm. But what we do get out of it is that officers, the ones that didn't believe at first, come out like, wow, that was something. That really helped. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it feel better about putting it together, is because you know it helps them.
Oh, yeah.
They just got to do it.
And I don't think people understand just talking about it, just laying it out. Like, you'll start talking and you'll be like, at the end of it, you're like, I didn't even know I need to talk about that.
But you got to know how to talk too about it, because you can't, like, a lot of police officers take it on their family.
Yep.
They talk at their family about it. They automatically think their family should already know what you're going through. And you get frustrating that they don't understand it, and then it becomes a little bit more issues.
I have trouble with that every day with my wife. Yeah.
My wife can tell you that from the time that we moved from the city to the county is a different, to Jefferson County is different, my attitude when I get home.
Absolutely.
And so, but it's just, you got to learn how to talk. And if you hold it in, then you wind up, and if you drink a beer, you think, oh, I can drink a beer tonight. And then I drink 5 beers, and you're drinking 10 beers, and then where does it stop?
Yeah.
So, but as long as you get it off your chest, I tell them, even if you don't want to talk about it, write it down, tear it up, and throw it away. You're getting it off yourself. You're getting it out.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, no, that's great. I think we're going to wrap it up, but I think I like to add in, and you're, a seasoned officer now. I want you to basically tell the audience, if they're a younger officer just starting out, what is the most important thing that you would tell them that they could walk away from the show with?
It's cliche, but people say treat people like you want your family members to be treated. Officers are one bad mistake away. Anybody's one bad mistake away from being another side of the law. Mm-hmm. You can have compassion. You can have empathy for anybody out there. I've locked up people I know that just killed somebody, and I call them sir or ma'am. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm not there to judge what they did. I'm there to enforce the law and, take them. And once they're in your handcuffs, in your custody, they're your responsibility.
Yeah.
You have to protect them. So I've had people in my car before they're going to jail, says the best time they had going to the police station, because play music and laugh. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Brian, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you, brother.
It's good seeing you.
Good seeing you.